indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our elected officials, grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Barra. Can we please have the roll call?
Mayor Taylor,
Here.
Mrs. Sarowski, Mr. Yanez.
Here.
Mrs. Zayarko.
Present.
Thank you, council. We need approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Kosky.
move to approve the agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No
Oh,
discussion?
excuse me, pardon me, Mr. Mayor.
It's okay. Mr. Radke.
I was hoping to remove item I from the consent agenda.
Okay, item I will be removed from the consent agenda, so item 7I will become consideration item 9C. Anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First item on our agenda is a report from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Even though we have one more council meeting before the 4th of July holiday, I did want to remind everyone that our offices will be closed on Independence Day, so please take note of that. And there will be a one-day delay in refuse, so we'll have a Saturday pickup, so please take note of that as well. And I also want to remind everyone, as I did a couple meetings ago, that we do enforce the fireworks law in the state of Michigan. And as a reminder, state law does allow the use of consumer fireworks from June 29th to July 5th in Sterling Heights. We ban them other days. Not everyone else bans them on other days. Some communities allow them year-round. We do not. So you can use them the 29th through July 5th. That's consumer-grade fireworks. What you need to know, though, is that they can be discharged from 11 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. and only on private property with permission of the property owner. So it can't be in streets, can't be on sidewalks, can't be in parks, can't be on any public property. So please take note of that. We do have to issue citations every year. It's difficult, but I know the police department does their best to enforce this. If you'd like more information, please go to our website and you can see the detailed list of the requirements. Also, I wanted to let everyone know that the Sterling Heights Parks and Recreation Department invites roller skaters and roller bladers to come out to the Dodge Park Farmers Market Pavilion to skate with a live DJ entertainment and food trucks, and that will be on, that will begin June 18th, well, today, and continuing through July 16th, and then also August 20th and September 10th. Yeah, so please take note of that. It's popular. A couple of years ago, we had a request from individuals to be able to do this, and we're glad we're able to allow it now in a more organized fashion. And if you don't mind, I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the screen because we had this very interesting national ranking that came out today, and I wanted to draw everyone's attention to it. So it was a listing of the 50 top safest and most affordable U.S. cities to live in across the country. And the variables they used to measure the ranking included median household income, household average mortgage costs, total monthly cost of living, which is really important in terms of affordability, of course, property crimes, and violent crimes. And those are crimes that are reported directly through the FBI. So they track this. This is not information that the city of Sterling Heights provided or any other city for that matter. But what's interesting to see is where Sterling Heights ranked. So this is a list of the top 15 communities nationwide, and I'm pleased to announce that Sterling Heights ranked 14th, or the highest in the state of Michigan, the best ranking in the state of Michigan. That we were the only city in the top 15. So when you look at the list of communities here, we're in very good company. When you look at places like Virginia Beach, Virginia, when you look at Huntsville, Alabama, and some of the others here, Olathe, Kansas, these are premier communities that enjoy great reputations like the city of Sterling Heights. So it's really good to be in this company. And when we think about affordability, that's something we talk a lot about in Sterling Heights. When having just gone through the budget process, we showed a lot of data that shows our very favorable ranking when it comes to our tax rate, when it comes to property taxes per capita. Those are strong measures of affordability, and we rank very favorably in those categories. So this really is a tribute, I feel, to the good work in our police department by the men and women in our police department who work hand in hand with residents through our directed patrol and also our community outreach programs with residents, and it does pay off. The mayor and city council have made very difficult decisions over the years to make sure that we have adequate staffing on the road. Just by way of example, during the hard times, we consolidated our dispatch center with the county so that we could add additional resources on the road for policing. Just recently, we got out of the jail business and consolidated our jail operations with the county. They're very good at running a jail, so why not have the county do it? It allowed the city to hire 7 sworn police officers, put them on the street. Those were tough decisions, but these are the dividends that result. This is the return on investment. So I'm really excited to report this information. We sent out the material on social media today. It came out late today. So I hope you all take note and share some pride in this great place that you live in. And Mayor, I'd like to now shift gears and talk a little bit about economic development, because it too is part of the ranking I just showed you. We have a very strong local economy. We have 70,000 people that are employed in Sterling Heights by small and large businesses. And the city's been very proactive on the economic development front over many, many years. And let me just talk about the categories of economic development. First, when we speak about economic development, there's the broad-based economic development category led by our economic development advisor, Luke Bonner. And that work in the general category of economic development focuses on everything from making sure that our large businesses like Ford, Stellantis, GDLS, BAE are continuing to flourish in our community. And sometimes that involves some unique programs. We have to work with them on hand in hand. So that requires a lot of economic development strategy. Lakeside redevelopment. Our economic development team has been hard at work on the lakeside redevelopment, working hand in hand with Mayor and City Council, reimagining the whole lakeside area. And that economic development team includes myself, our assistant city manager, our city development director, city attorney, and many others that help us with economic development activities every day. We work hand in hand with our local development finance authority, our corridor improvement authority. Now we have 2 corridor improvement authority boards. We have a brownfield authority that we work hand in hand with, and a smart zone involving the state and Oakland University and other partners. And we also have a major defense initiative by way of economic development that we're going to be sharing very soon with the Mayor and City Council and the community to focus more attention on protecting and growing the major defense assets that we have in the city of Sterling Heights. What we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about this evening is what we're doing as a community to support and foster growth of our small businesses, our startup businesses, and smaller businesses that need resources, acceleration resources to help grow that environment as well. So you can see economic development's very broad-based, it's very involved, it's very complex, and I believe Sterling Heights is on the cutting edge. With us this evening is Paula McPherson, who's going to lead us through this presentation. And that PowerPoint will come up in a second.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm Paula McPherson with Velocity. I wanted to say thank you to Mark Vanderpool for inviting me in this evening to present to all of you, and also for all of your attention and time this evening. I truly do appreciate your support that you've given us and the support that you continue to give us at Velocity. I wanted to share with you a little bit about our numbers last year, just to give you a little contrast of where we are this year thus far. So last year, and some of you may have seen this, we produced this and we did send this around in January of this year. But last year, through our events, we had 19 events that Velocity produced specifically through our programming. We had 28 that were partnered events. And then we had 7 events that our tenants put on. In total, we brought in just over 2,000 folks through the building. Let's see. Hey, it worked. And then as far as what we did last year with bringing investment dollars into businesses that we're working with in our accelerator program, we realized $4.8 million in investment for some of these businesses, which is really incredible for the local economy. We worked with 74 different clients, and we had 26 new businesses started. 428 hours of coaching were given by our staff, and we referred out 372 entrepreneurs to other smart zones, either because we didn't have the funding for them in-house or because maybe they were better served by someone else in the ecosystem, given their subject matter. And then you can also see on the left, this is all of the growth that we've had, all of the website visitors. As far as new funding in 2024, I'm sure many of you heard, we brought in the Small Business Support Hubs grant, and that is $1.8 million, and that's over a 2.5-year spend down, which is very exciting because traditionally, Velocity has only been able to work with manufacturing, tech, DoD, and aerospace. So this grant actually allowed us to open up our services to more folks. We refer to those as Main Street businesses, so if you're a restaurant, you could be a consulting firm, childcare business, a variety of different types of businesses are now able to take advantage of our opportunities that we have in-house. We also have our Gateway Grant, which is $100,000. We brought in $30,000 in BAF. Startup space, we got $70,000. That is our CRM, so that was funded for us. And then we're also looking at future opportunities as we look ahead to other things that we are hoping to, or I shouldn't say hoping, but we endeavor to take on. We have several opportunities that we've identified throughout the ecosystem that we're working with the economic development team to bring to fruition. Year-to-date, 2024, we have some really impressive numbers. We're actually on track by the end of June to beat those numbers that I just showed you, which is really incredible, only 6 months in. So this year, we've brought in $97,000 in BAF. Last year, we brought in only $30,000. We also have awarded $6,000 in technical assistance funding and $3.8 million in investment to local businesses throughout Macomb County. And we're expecting to land at about $8 million this year. As far as companies served thus far, we've worked with 59 companies and we've created 10 new companies, and we have another dozen already in front of the state waiting for them to be approved. We've had 15 new jobs created in the local economy, and we have 36 total new jobs that we're projecting will be created out of our work. I think it's interesting to note that in our accelerator program, we have 14 Sterling Heights businesses that we're currently working with. And in total, in our accelerator, we have 39 businesses. 14 of those are specifically Sterling Heights businesses. We have 3 Sterling Heights entrepreneurs who just graduated from our very first Business Builder Boot Camp. We also have 11 Sterling Heights entrepreneurs in our incubator program. And we have 4 new companies that we've attracted to the local Sterling Heights economy. So very exciting numbers. Some of the programming that we have been putting on thus far this year, we've partnered with Michigan Founders Fund. We put on once a month Founders First Friday. So that's for entrepreneurs to come in, learn about different things that are happening in the ecosystem, grant opportunities, and also to network with one another. We're doing coffee and conversation. We've been focusing on Michigan authors this year, so I encourage you to please check out our events page and sign up for some of those. You get to come in, hear the author speak about their book, ask questions, and you get to leave with a copy of their book as well. Donuts in Defense, we've partnered with NAMC, and we've been doing that already for a year. We do it quarterly. And this is geared at the DoD space, so it's for primes attend. We also have manufacturers and folks who work adjacent to the DoD space. Quarterly, we bring in over 100 people to this event. And it's a networking event, but it also provides an opportunity for the members to talk with other members, work on different bids or RFQs RFPs for business. So we've seen a lot of business partnerships grow out of this. And then additionally, we also bring in educational opportunities around DoD and manufacturing. We've partnered with UHY. We're coming up on our third event with them on succession planning. We've partnered with MMTC to bring in manufacturing classes. They're actually located in Plymouth. They're a nonprofit. Most of the classes that they do are, the costs are defrayed by the grant opportunities that they have. So it's been a huge blessing for a lot of the local manufacturers to be able to send their employees, get some of those classes covered through the grant opportunities, and not have to have them drive all the way to Plymouth. Additionally, it's important to note that this has created another revenue source for Velocity because they are renting the classroom space for us to put on these classes, so very important to us. We're also working right now with Comerica to put together some funding training. We are working with Point Angels and Crowd Impact. We're going to put on a program this fall called Early Stage Funding. So teaching entrepreneurs who are either in a seed round, pre-seed, Series A, teaching them how to fundraise. And then we're also going to be putting on another event around pitch deck building and how to present yourself, whether you're going to a bank or you're going to a venture capitalist. What do they want to hear? What do they want to see in your pitch? Those are the things that we're going to train them on. For small business programming, so I mentioned that $1.8 million small business grant. There are several different components to that. So not only are there direct grant awards of cash, there are also technical assistance awards as well. Community listening tour is something that our staff has been working on. We've been getting out, meeting with local DDAs, economic development, also chambers in different areas throughout Macomb County to find out what are some of the services and educational opportunities that those communities need most and make sure that we point that money at the things that people really are interested in. We just wrapped up the first Women's Business Builder Boot Camp. I dare you to say that 3 times fast. And we have another one coming this fall. We had 14 graduates. And then this next time around, we've opened up, we'll have 15 folks in that class. We've partnered with Macomb County, and we will be hosting Best of the Zest pitch competition. So that's for food manufacturers or packaged food providers. We are starting in October, 3x3 pitch night. We'll be doing that quarterly. And that will be open to the public. Anyone in Macomb County that is an entrepreneur can apply for that pitch night, and they can walk away with cash awards to help grow their business. We'll also be doing a road show. And so one of the things that we've learned, this grant that we have, the $1.8 million, we have to spread that across the entire county. And we're realizing that as we're meeting with these communities, getting to Sterling Heights isn't always convenient. So if you think about a small business owner who owns their business, they're working in their business, and then they have to try to go and travel somewhere that's 10, 15, 20 miles away, maybe it's easier if we bring those educational opportunities to their community. So we're looking at putting on some different events and boot camps in other communities throughout Macomb County and partnering. And then some of the boot camps that we have coming up, those will be this fall and then into the spring. We have a few that are around food entrepreneurs. We also will be focusing on business funding, marketing, pitch decks, as well as business planning. So some of the partnerships. We have lots of partnerships already at Velocity. I'm always interested to meet more folks. So if you have someone that we're not already working with that you think we should be, I appreciate the opportunity, or the warm introduction would be wonderful. Of course, we're always looking to work with our local chambers, DDAs and economic development professionals, any special interest organizations. Accounting Aid Society of Detroit is actually going to start providing free accounting services for our clients that come through Velocity. We're looking to work with community colleges and universities, as well as our fellow Smart Zones, banking and investment organizations, and then other independent educational organizations. And then a look ahead. DOD and aerospace, we're working on a focus group internally to determine what are some of the needs of our local manufacturers, what are programming, training, grant opportunities that they need that we can help bolster that local manufacturing, and what are those partnerships that we need to forge to make that happen. As far as tech and manufacturing, we'll continue with our educational and grant opportunities, and we'll broaden those offerings as well. And then for small business, boot camps, one-to-one coaching, and again, the educational and grant opportunities. And then some of the other things that we'll be looking at as our Smart Zone renewal is upon us in the next 24 months-ish. We need to produce a sustainability plan for how do we keep what we're doing and how do we maintain this momentum that we have gotten here at Velocity. And so part of the MEDC's requirement is to provide them with a sustainability plan. And so we'll be working through that. We've already identified, and we've had several grant opportunities actually call us and ask if we're interested in taking in grant dollars. So we need to work through that. It's very exciting. Some of you may know we recently won the Economic Development Partner of the Year award. And so since we got that award, my phone's been ringing a lot more. People are really interested in working with us. So we have some grant opportunities that are kind of a soft commitment. And then we have some other private folks that are looking to fund some opportunities in-house. So we'll work with our economic development team and also our LDFA to create a plan that makes sense for everyone. Thank you.
Mayor, just in closing, I wanted to thank Paula and her team. They do an excellent job, as you can see. I also wanted to thank the City Council, because we are the only city in Macomb County that has a collaboration center like this, recognized by the state of Michigan, funded in part by the state of Michigan. And it's really exciting, and again, a testament to our focus on economic development. So thank you very much. And Mayor, that concludes my report this evening.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. Thank you, Paula, for coming out and the very comprehensive update on the Velocity Center. I think we hear a lot about Velocity, and we hear the events that are happening, but it was nice to hear about the actual work that's being done and how it's impacting small businesses in Macomb County and throughout. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. All right, with that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is an ordinance introduction. This is to consider introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 23 of the City Code entitled Garbage and Refuse to implement recycling requirements for multiple family dwellings. We do have a presentation from our Assistant City Attorney, Alyssa Erickson. Ms. Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. As this body is well aware, with the May 1st implementation of the new curbside cart service through Priority Waste, many residents in the city, in fact, all residents in the city residing in single family and in many residential condominium units have the ability to participate in weekly curbside collection of recyclables. However, because many multiple family complexes privately contract for refuse, the option for recycling may or may not be available to tenants or residents. So in order to ensure that residents residing in these multiple family dwellings have the option for recycling, the City Attorney's Office was tasked with researching and drafting an ordinance that amends Chapter 23 of the City Code to implement recycling requirements applicable to apartments, attached residential condominium complexes not receiving that service through Priority Waste, public housing, and other similar multiple-family housing developments. In drafting this ordinance, we learned that we aren't the first to do this. We saw many cities like Ann Arbor. They require recycling carts and dumpsters for multiple family dwellings, depending on the number of units. And other cities across the country, like Austin, Texas, and Norcross, Georgia, require that multiple family dwellings submit a recycling plan to their respective city departments for recycling services. The proposed ordinance in front of you this evening is similar to that Austin, Texas model and Norcross, Georgia model in that it would require that multiple family dwellings submit for DPW approval an on-site recycling program that provides recycling services to tenants. As part of that recycling program, the multiple family dwellings would be required to contract with a state licensed waste hauler in order to provide that single stream recycling service. And in recognizing that this will take some time to implement and inform property owners of the new requirements, the proposed ordinance would have varying deadlines. So for new multiple family dwellings that have not received final site plan approval by July 1st of this year, they would be required to obtain that approval from DPW prior to getting their final site plan approval. For existing multiple family dwellings that have 50 or more units, they would be required to get DPW approval by July 1st, 2025. For existing multiple family dwellings between 25 and 49, they would be required to get DPW approval before January 1st, 2026. And for existing multiple family dwellings in between 1 and 24 units, they would be required to obtain DPW approval before July 1st, 2026. In instituting a recycling program, the proposed ordinance permits a lot of varying containers, whether that be compactors, mechanical dumpsters, roll-off carts, or any other container that DPW would deem acceptable in reviewing that proposed recycling program. All containers, no matter what the multiple family dwelling would choose, would be required to be clearly labeled as recycling containers, be provided by the multiple family property owner, and maintained in a clean, sanitary, and litter-free manner. Additionally, the proposed ordinance would require that containers be placed in a location at least as convenient to tenants as refuse containers, again, to essentially incentivize that recycling be available to these tenants and the tenants actually use this. For the various types of abilities or options that they can provide, you can have an indoor common area collection, you can have the exterior mechanical recycling dumpster, you can have roll-off cart banks, you can have curbside collection, really any of the above. Depending on what option the multiple family property decides to institute, there are various requirements in the proposed ordinance, such as the mechanical recycling dumpsters would be required to be screened. Exterior roll-off cart banks would also be required to be on a concrete pad and also behind some screening as well. So that would all be reviewed by DPW in the review process. And in reviewing these proposed recycling programs, DPW would specifically consider the adequacy and location of the proposed containers, the number of pickups the dwelling is proposing, and the types of containers based on the use and the layout of the property. And in the event that a multiple family dwelling property owner alleges a hardship in complying with these requirements, whether that be the number of containers, whether that be the location, anything that they would allege as a hardship for complying with these ordinance requirements, the proposed ordinance would allow that property owner to seek a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the Zoning Board of Appeals would not be able to grant that variance unless they found that the property owner would have to show compliance would impose an undue hardship. As part of the proposed ordinance, it actually also requires the multiple family property owner or the managing agent, whichever I guess is probably closer to the program, to notify and educate the tenants about the recycling services that are available on site, both to new residents and also to the existing tenants as well. So the violation of any of these requirements for the recycling program would be a civil infraction. The first violation would be $750. A first repeat offense would be $1,250, and a subsequent offense would be $2,500. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I know Mr. Moore is here as well in the audience.
All right, Thank you very much, Ms. Erickson. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
resolved to introduce the ordinance amending Chapter 23 of the City Code entitled Garbage and Refuse to implement recycling requirements for multiple family dwellings.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Mr. Radke.
Yes, briefly, Mr. Mayor. I'm so happy to see this ordinance come before us. I wish it was here when we implemented the changeover in service, but I have briefly through the chair to Mr. Moore. You can answer a few questions of mine. Welcome back from vacation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Briefly, Mr. Moore, have we already closed the recycling center that we had remaining open?
Recycle Center was closed, yes, April 30th, when the new program started, May 1st.
So with that, I guess I'm concerned about the timelines in this ordinance. Because it says for up to 2 years, people will be submitting plans to you for implementation, but yet we've already closed the last remaining way for people to recycle without having recycling at their facilities. Seems to be a gap in service. So I was curious why we chose to close the final recycling center without this ordinance in place already.
I think that when well, let me back up. We were counting the amount of residents that came to the recycle center. And of those residents, I don't recall the numbers right now, but I believe it was roughly 2% of the residents that did show up to the recycle center. I think there was maybe, 1,000 a month that showed up, and we figured most of those are probably repeat. But nonetheless, about 2% of those folks that did come to the recycle center were from apartment complexes. So I think the decision was made that we made the decision for the masses, if you will, for lack of a better term. So the 98% of the community would then have recycling the following day or the following week. However, the 2% that came to the center, which I think equated to roughly 15-ish, 20 different folks, yes, they would be without, but we encourage them to talk with their complexes, their property management companies, and inquire on recycling. I think that's possibly how, through a matter of a different couple of things, of how we got to this today.
And, I guess, I understand what you're saying, but we've never made it easy for people in complexes to recycle. It's not surprising to me that they haven't been. I guess my number one concern about this ordinance is, how long do you think it's going to take to implement this? Are these timelines somewhat lengthy? Could we shorten them? What are we expecting on, you obviously don't want to be flooded with a group of reports, I assume. So I guess why are we saying 2 years for implementation for smaller complexes?
I can take a stab at it. Maybe either the city attorneys would like to take a poke at that too. But I think to your point, we don't want to be overwhelmed with that. There is going to be, admittedly, some learning curve for the DPW, for the city as a whole with this, and for those complexes. So I think that the ordinance, as the way it's drafted as is, does lay out at least some time for folks to collect their thoughts, work with that service provider, and then present that information to the DPW in hopes that we're not bombarded quickly with everybody and all their plans.
Okay, and then I guess my final question is, in reviewing the plans, how are we going to ensure that the complexes have capacity? Because they could say, I'm going to put one roll-off cart, for example, or one little pickup cart. That will not serve a complex of 200 people. How are we determining what the right size is for these complexes?
That's a great question. I think it's going to be, are we going to look at per unit, let's just say, for example, one cart capacity per unit? Is that going to be the measure? Are we going to maybe during this give and take, or I shouldn't say give and take, during this communication piece with these complexes, are we going to ask them and inquire how many folks have shown interest? Are you having folks that are inquiring with recycling? So I think that's going to be some learning curve for us. I don't have a good answer to that right now, but I'm certain that if it was not adequate enough, we would know quickly. And
Well,
if
right.
we needed to make a change, we could make a change.
But my concern is that, I'll be frank with you, these complexes are going to lowball you. Because they don't want to have these things on site. They're not going to want to add capacity because it's going to add cost. So I would say that much like we require parking, we require so much parking for so many units. It drives me up the wall, but that's how we do things. The idea that we can't do that for recycling in Sterling Heights is kind of silly to me. We should make a determination. So many units should be so much capacity. And if it's way over or way under, we'll adjust. But we should have a standard measure. Because if you allow complexes to come to you and say, we don't need this, no one in our complex will recycle, no one in their complex will recycle, because they won't have the ability. And I think you have to kind of, not even meet with them where they are, tell them where we're going, because there's been no rush in the last 15 years for complexes to add recycling. It's not because residents don't contact me all the time and say they want it. They do. That's why they're upset that we closed the recycling center. So I would argue that it's the complexes who don't want to pay, and their management companies that are preventing it right now. So we have to make sure we right-size and put this in there. And I guess I have one question through the chair to the city attorney, Mr. Koszubski. If we're implementing in this screening requirements for recycle, could we also in a future ordinance implement screening requirements for complexes that have dumpsters right now that don't have screening?
Was that to you, Mr. Koszubski?
It was.
Okay, sorry about that. Mike just keeps answering without even waiting, so I was.
You know me, I'm always.
It's on the job.
Mr. Koszubski.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Radke, the reality of it is a lot of the site planning that was already done for the screening for much of the dumpsters, that's already kind of grandfathered in for their site plans. These would be new containers, and we require them to come up to code,
Right.
current code. With that said, I will say that the current standards that we have are pretty good, but every single one of these developments, and just to address your timeline issue, every one of these developments that have been there for 20, 30 years, they all have a different makeup and layout, and it's going to take some time for them to best implement this, because it's not just about putting out a can or a dumpster, it's about whether or not their waste hauler has access to the areas they want to do this to. So they have to work and come up with a plan for that. With respect to the, and just another question that was asked about the amount of materials and how much we're going to look at. We will look at best standards across the nation with respect to how much recycling is usually done with apartment renters to try to come up with a good plan. And in many instances, we've seen instances where they're giving smaller containers that are collected during the week, and they take it down with them, put it into a receptacle, and then bring it back up to their apartment so that they can make multiple trips as opposed to just one. So there's a lot that goes into these plans. I think that DPW is well positioned to handle that.
Right, and I guess to back up, we now require screening on all dumpsters. But in the complexes that have been built over the last 50 years, many of them do not have any screening at all. My question was, can we implement screening on dumpster sites that don't have it?
Retroactively, I don't think we could, because the screening that we're talking about would only be if they're going to use a new dumpster. So if a complex can't fit a dumpster, they won't be using a new one. The old ones are stuck with what they are because they don't have the room
Well, a lot
generally.
of them, like the complex right across from Carlton Middle School, they really just have dumpsters sitting on pads. So we couldn't require them to put screening around the dumpsters on their pads?
I would say at the moment, based on their site planning, no, but I would look at potentially trying to find a way to do it, but I can't answer that tonight.
Okay. Then I have one more question through the chair to Ms. Erickson. In reviewing these ordinances, you say that this ordinance is more like Norcross, Georgia. What is Ann Arbor's ordinance like? And I guess why are we going farther away instead of closer to home?
So the Norcross, Georgia ordinance focused more on the recycling program aspect of it, that kind of focused more so on the uniqueness of every single property, which our office thought was appropriate, just considering that we're applying this to existing apartments, as Mr. Koszubski mentioned, not one size fits all in Sterling Heights. The Ann Arbor ordinance was more mandatory and also it was, the containers were provided by the city, so it's also a little bit different than the circumstance we have here, where it's not actually through curbside collection.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that this was the best solution we can have, seeing how the city chose not to recycle for so many years. I guess the one thing I would say, and this is going to come back, I assume, because it's an ordinance introduction, I'd think about making the 2026 timeline more 2025. Because I don't see why this should take 2.5 years to implement. Because then it'll be 10 years, more than 10 years since I got elected before we could get recycling at every home in Sterling Heights, and I think that's crazy. With that being said, I'm happy to support this ordinance. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Radke. Council, anyone else? Mrs. Zarko?
Yes, through the chair to whoever wants to answer. Probably Mr. Moore.
I'll take it.
Beside you. The complexes themselves can choose their own vendor for the recycling. Is that correct? It doesn't have to be, it has to be the city of it, through the chair.
Go ahead.
Moore.
Thank you.
I challenge the ruling of the chair.
Continuing, go ahead.
Oh, rough night. Yes, that's correct. The complexes will have the ability to choose whatever private vendor or establishment that they like.
Okay, and then let's concentrate on the positive. Do we have any complexes that are already doing the recycling voluntarily that we know about?
Apartment complexes?
Yes.
Yes, I don't know the names of them offhand, but I did speak with the supervisor back at the office. We talked about this topic today, and he said some have called inquiring about recycling. They already do their own and wanted to know if something was coming down the pipeline, and we said stay tuned. So.
My condo complex does it voluntarily.
Okay. And I know I've gotten calls from churches that were using the recycling center, and they have already, because some of them, actually, when we switched to priority and signed the contract with them, they did it before we did. They made the switch. So they have actually contacted priority for their own recycling bins as well. So this is moving voluntarily. People are knowing what they need to do in order to recycle. So, but I just want to focus on the positive. And then nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Zarko.
Mayor
Mrs.
Taylor,
Schmidt?
thank you. Through the chair to Ms. Erickson, maybe. So the fines, the 3 different fine levels, will that fine go to the owner of the apartment building or to the management? Who gets that fine?
The proposed ordinance indicates that it could go to the owner. Let me point you to the right direction real quick. Let me just. Yep, so any entities, owners, managers, or operators can be issued the citation.
And how much length of time is between the first offense and the second offense?
So you could get one the next day.
Oh, okay. All right, and I can tell you that Warren Consolidated Schools already recycles. We have a great recycle program that the leadership kids do over at Career Prep anyway, so they're already on board too, and they use priority. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Council, anyone else? Mrs. Konski?
Through the chair to Mr. Moore. Here we're dealing with residential properties and multiple family dwelling properties. Are there any plans to deal with commercial?
Mr. Moore?
Not at this time. I think this focus right now is these areas, but we have not had discussions on the commercial side yet.
And no one has contacted you for information?
Not
Either.
at this time, no.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Council, anyone else? Mr. Moore, do you have any idea what this service typically costs? Or, I know we're dealing with a wide range of different types of multifamily buildings and numbers of units, but do you have any way of estimating it? Have you looked into that at all?
I have not looked into what a cost would be. I think you're exactly right, Mayor. It's going to be what type of service is needed from cart or dumpster, and then how many need to be serviced.
Okay, if there's a small apartment complex or even a large apartment complex, And they just wanted to receive the recycling carts that Priority Waste has provided to single-family homeowners. Will Priority be able to service those under our current contract, or would that have to be an add-on, or there a separate contract specifically with the apartment complex?
I believe that's going to have to be completely separate. I don't think they're going to be able to use city contracted cost. Priority may, I don't want to speak for them, but yeah, I don't think they'll be able to use our contract pricing.
Okay. So like for your condo complex, what, can you just explain or describe the process?
So I mean, as it was explained to me from our board president, it was the exact opposite. We contract with Priority for dumpster service, and they offered to give us recycling carts like the regular homeowners get to our, they can pick it up with the one-person truck, and they just dropped them off. They said it's part of the service, and they dropped off so we have, each building is 8 people in it, and they dropped off 2 carts for each building. Now, those carts are probably going to be full. They're testing it right now, but they picked it up this week with no problem.
Where do you put the cart?
So we have excess space in our parking lot because we are overparked massively. So they marked off an area that is normally like a loading zone or something that we've used to just transfer stuff, and they marked off a little area, and they kind of drew a square around it, and that's where the carts go.
So the carts are always there, you bring your recycling down, you throw it in the
They're
cart,
near the dumpsters, yes.
and it's picked up
By a
like whatever
normal
the
truck.
normal day is for that area of the city?
So our complex's waste is picked up on Tuesday, and they pick up the recycling on Tuesday as well as the dumpsters.
Okay. And its Priority does the dumpsters too?
Yes, but our complex is a condo complex, we were forced to change, we had GFL, but because the city contracted with Priority, we were forced to change to Priority.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How come?
That was the rule of the, whatever we had. So the same with the complex next to us. So they took, GFL came one day and picked up all their dumpsters, and Priority dropped off theirs.
And you think that the recycling is not an additional expense?
According to our board chair, but I haven't confirmed that. That's just what he verbally told me.
Sometimes these chairmen, they say things,
I
they have
know.
no idea what they're talking about.
I know. So I haven't reviewed our numbers, but I asked them, because they just showed up one day, and I'm like, oh, wow, is this because of our new ordinance? And they said, no, the residents wanted it. We approached Priority because it's been asked for, because I asked for it, and I guess some other residents did too. And now we have recycling carts. I didn't put much more thought into it than that.
Do you mind, how many, you said there's 8 people per building?
Eight units.
8 units per
Yeah.
building, and do you mind, how many buildings are there, do you know?
5. So there's altogether, because some units are larger than others, it's about 200, it's like 120 units, something like that, with 200 parking spaces, give or take.
Okay. All right. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm not comfortable condensing the timeline much more because it is going to take a while to get through all this. What is the plan for notifying apartment complexes and their owners or management companies? How is the city going to address that? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, great question. So if this is adopted, then we would roll out an education program to all of the apartment complexes and condos that are not receiving curbside pickup, informing them of the ordinance change and a request to meet with their management company or their ownership to talk about the ordinance and what is required under it. And we would set up meetings and begin explaining the process. So it's really about education the first probably 6 months of this, and which is why we started with the big fish, so to speak, the bigger units, because we can get the most impact there. And then the intent is, if we can do it faster, we will. I mean, we're not going to necessarily tell them they can wait till July 1st to do it of next year. They have to, we want them to engage their residents and look at this process as quickly as possible. So to the extent we can do it faster, we will. But we wanted to make sure there was enough runway there so that we could get the education out and explain it to them.
All right. speaking of promotion and education, this ordinance would require the apartment complex to provide education to their residents on an ongoing basis, right?
Yeah, like a new information package for somebody who comes in would say, here's the recycling, here's our recycling program. We're not asking for a very onerous thing, we're just saying, once you have your residents that are there up to speed, any new residents should get a flyer that says, here's what we do.
But then it says, all existing tenants and residents of multifamily dwelling properties subject to this article shall be provided at least annually with general recycling information and current program recycling guidelines by the property owner and or the managing agent of the property. So at least on an annual basis, they got to get something that says, make sure you recycle. And
Newsletter.
And here's how you do it.
Right.
Yeah, newsletter.
And if they don't do that, they could be fined $750, right? Or what was it?
Correct.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
They do that already. I mean, I get that stuff every year.
What about so let's say this passes in 2 weeks, and this has requirements for the existing multifamily dwellings to comply. How does it affect something that's coming through the pipeline right now that's maybe been proposed but hasn't been approved, or something that gets approved within the next 2 to 4 months? How is that going to impact this, Mr. Koszubski?
That's also a great question, because we knew this ordinance was coming. A lot of our developments, we've already, as part of our general development meeting, been talking about recycling. It's been very well received. Their residents tend to want this. So we've, as part of the developments that have been offered as of late, you'll see that recycling has already been incorporated. With respect to anything that doesn't have site plan approval right now, if this is introduced, if they don't have site plan approval by July 1st, then they would be required to come up to the standard.
Okay, they wouldn't have until July, like, for example, if they're, okay.
Because they're
All right. My last question is, the larger complexes have to comply within 12 months. The medium ones have 18 months, and the small ones have 24 months. What's the rationale behind that? It seems a little inverted to me.
I think it's 18 months total. It's a year.
I thought it was July of,
Yeah.
all right, so July, so 1 to 24 units has to have approval before July 1st, 2026, which is,
2 years.
2 years and 13 days. 25 to 49 is January, so that's 18 months.
Right.
And 50 or more. So it seems like the bigger the apartment complex, the shorter period of time that they have to comply. But to me, it seems like the bigger the apartment complex, the more cumbersome it may be for them to comply. So what's the rationale behind drafting it this way?
Well, the rationale that we had, and Ms. Erickson can chime in, but the rationale that we did was the larger complexes have the wherewithal and the system in place to actually work through this, whereas the smaller complexes are going to take more time to figure out how they're going to do it. And I think that
They have more space too.
they do have more space. But I do think that, while it seems inverted, I do think that going with the larger units first and giving them a significant amount of time to do it, they'll be able to handle this a lot easier than the smaller units that may be running through a management company that we don't know who they are, who exists, and then getting their associations on board and things of that nature. And really, apartment complexes are, a business that are run, whereas a lot of the condominium complexes are still mom and pop associations. So giving them a little more time to figure it out made sense to us.
Okay, that's fair. Council, anybody else, anything? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Erickson, appreciate it.
Very good.
And thank you, Mr. Moore, as well. And you too, Mark, you carried a heavy load there at the end. All right, next up tonight is an ordinance introduction, an ordinance adoption. All right, we got it. To adopt the final amendment to the appropriations ordinance for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. I see Ms. Varney comfortably sitting in the audience, so I assume there'll be no need for any sort of presentation tonight. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Zarko?
Resolve to adopt the final amendment to the appropriations ordinance for the 2023-24 fiscal year.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
No, I have to agree with you that this was presented very well to us. There are no questions. And Ms. Varney did a great job again.
We're adding
She always does. All right, council, with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next up is the consent agenda with the omission of item I. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on any item on tonight's consent agenda aside from item I? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Support.
It's been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is a consideration item, and this is to consider approval of a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Sterling Heights and Ask Me Local 1917, representing the Department of Public Works supervisory employees for the period of July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2028. We have a presentation from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you very much, Mayor. As you noted, the current agreement's about to expire. I'll take just a couple of minutes to highlight the high points of the agreement and address questions the council may have. As you noted, the term is 4 years, July 1, 24 through June 30th, 28. The wages, most noteworthy, are as follows. Due to wage trends both in unionized private and public labor sectors, the city focused on making sure that its wage structure placed it in a very competitive position for not only the recruitment and attraction of talent, but also the retention of our existing employees in this group. So the city's wage proposal reflected the following elements: and increases to the starting wage for all classifications, increases to the top step for all wage classifications, and also condensing the wage steps. We previously had 7. We've now condensed it down to 3. In addition to that, the new wage scale will result in a base wage increase in the first year of 10%. That may seem like a large number, but everyone I know has paid attention to what's been going on with the inflationary environment, and this group of employees got kind of caught in the middle of that with their existing agreement, if you will, and we felt this was fair to address the slippage due to inflationary pressure. So 10% in the first year, and then the following years, a 1% increase in 2025, 1.5% increase in 26, and 1.5% in the final year. In addition, for the defined contribution plan, that would be the equivalent of a 401A or a 401K in the private sector. As the council knows, and for the viewing audience, the city has closed its fixed pension plans and moved to a 401K style plan, saving tens of millions of dollars for the city long term. So the deferred compensation contribution will increase from 5.5% to 10% in year 4. In addition, the city's annual contribution to the post-employment health plan will increase from $2,000 to $2,500. Just a comment on that plan, the city has also closed its traditional retiree health care plan. So instead, we contribute to a savings account, if you will, for retiree health care. And that, too, has saved the city tens of millions of dollars. So this $500 increase is certainly reasonable. But over the lifetime, if an employee starts here and they work 30 years, $2,500 annually will add up. They can also contribute their own amounts. And by the time they end their employment, they'll be in a position to make a be able to make, fund their retiree health care costs. In addition, many of you know that the city self-insures for medical coverage for our employees, which means that the city pays directly for medical-related claims rather than health plan premiums. It's worked very well for us. Again, we've saved millions of dollars by self-insuring. Consequently, a healthier workforce that actively engages in health management through preventative measures translates to not only better health outcomes, but lower overall health care claims for the city. A new benefit, the annual health assessment incentive, has been agreed to that provides members a financial incentive of $750 for the member and $500 for a member's spouse to undergo an annual physical and health risk assessment at the city's on-site health center. Now, this is a new program. We're really excited about it. We think this will certainly reduce our healthcare costs, but as I noted, most importantly, provide for a healthier workforce. All the other monetary and insurance benefits remain at the levels under the current expiring CBA. The CBA is before you this evening. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge a good faith effort exhibited by the DPW supervisory team and also our city's negotiating team led by Assistant City Manager Jeff Bahorsky that led to the agreement that's before you this evening. And with all this in mind, I respectfully request your approval of the new CBA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this? If not, council, I need a motion.
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Schmidt.
Resolved to approve the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Sterling Heights and AFSCME Local 1917 DPW supervisory employees for the period of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2028, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign all documents in conjunction with this approval.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mrs. Schmidt?
I have nothing, Mayor.
Council? Mrs. Zarko.
Taylor, no, I'm just glad that we reached, an agreement before the deadline for starters. I think this is a very competitive contract, and I think that's where we have to be right now in this particular workforce that we're dealing with. So I'm grateful that we can meet all these requirements. Thank you.
Council, anyone? Mr. Radke.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out and congratulate Mr. Vanderpool on an excellent contract, but I'm excited for the health assessment, which will get more of our employees into our clinic we have here at City Hall and hopefully help them in both their health outcomes. And it's a nice little bonus if you come and get assessed. So I think that's a great contract sweetener, and I'm happy to vote for this. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Anyone else?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Sarowski.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Taylor. I also have to echo Mr. Radke's commendation that this health incentive is definitely a step in the right direction. We do need to keep our employees healthy. This starts to, if the employees do not already have good health habits, this can help direct them in that direction. And I, as a nurse, always want to see that going forward. So I do really appreciate that. And as an employer myself, I think this is a wonderful, wonderful contract. Our raises aren't nearly this high for our annual raises, so I do want to commend the city for being able to get this nice little bargaining contract. I think my employees would love to have that, so it's wonderful, and I think that the employees should be very happy with it, and I hope that they are. So nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Sarowski. Council? Nothing further. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up is a consideration item. This is to consider appointments to City of Sterling Heights boards and commissions. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this item? Okay, we have a number of items tonight. It's 8:04 p.m. I have a lot more energy than I did last week, 2 weeks ago at midnight. So this should be a much better process. Okay, we're going to start with the Planning Commission. There are 3 members on the Planning Commission who are requesting reappointment. This is a mayoral appointment to terms ending June 30th, 2027. I'd appreciate it if a council member could make the motion to reappoint Jeffrey Garapi, Pashko Weekai, and Brandy Wright to the Planning Commission.
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Sarowski.
Resolved to reappoint Jeffrey Garapi, Pashko Weekai, and Brandy Wright to the Planning Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter, subset 4.03, and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Just very briefly, I know all three of these people quite well, and I think they do a very good job currently, and I'm happy to reappoint them.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sarowski. Mr. Radke, anything?
Ditto.
Council, with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next up is the Board of Ordinance Appeals. This is a city council appointment. There are two members requesting reappointment, Robert Irving and Julie Hoff Windhorse. These are to terms ending June 30th, 2027. Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
resolve to appoint Robert Irvin and Julie Hoff Windhorse to the Board of Ordinance Appeals 1 to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subsection 4.03, taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Just briefly, both people have already been serving on our Ordinance Board of Appeals and take the, making sure our community looks good and people are taking care of their homes very seriously. I'm happy to reappoint them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Radke. Council, anybody else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Board of Ordinance Appeals 2. There are 3 positions here. We're gonna, let me see, we've got 1 alternate and we've got 2 full members. So we can start with the alternate member. This is again a council appointment to a term ending June 30, 2026. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
resolve to appoint Lillian Jacobs to the Board of Ordinance Appeals 2 alternate to a term ending June 30th, 2026, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subset 4.03, taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Just briefly, Ms. Jacobs is a member of our African American Coalition and wants to get more involved in the city. I think this is an excellent appointment.
Very good. Council, anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next will be the Board of Ordinance Appeals 2 full members. Council?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Sarowski.
Resolved to appoint Michael Stickney and Stephen Weekai to the Board of Ordinance Appeals 2 to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subset 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Again, both of these gentlemen do a good job. I'd like to see them continue, and they have my full support.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sarowski. Council, anyone else? With no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Board of Review. This is a council appointment. There are 2 members seeking reappointment to terms ending June 30, 2027. Council, is there a motion?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Sarowski.
Resolved to appoint John Hages and Patrick Rye to the Board of Review to a term ending June 30, 2027, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subset 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
I wish them both well. I think that they will both do a good job.
Council, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Zoning Board of Appeals. There are 2 members seeking reappointment to terms ending June 30, 2027. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
resolve to reappoint Derek D'Angelo and Pashko Weekai to the Zoning Board of Appeals to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subsection 4.03, taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I know both members. They both have previously served as chair of this board. They both care a great deal about it, and I think they do a great job.
All right, thank you. I agree. Council, anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Corridor Improvement Authority. There are 2 members requesting reappointment to terms ending June 30, 2028. This is a mayoral appointment. Is there a council member who would make the motion to reappoint Robert Artemovich and Richard Leha to the Corridor Improvement Authority?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Zarko.
Resolved to appoint Robert Artemovich and Richard Leha to the Corridor Improvement Authority to a term ending June 30th, 2028, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, very briefly,
Mr. Radke.
I just have a question through the chair to the city attorney. Since we now have more than one corridor improvement authorities, are we going to rename them? This is, I believe, the North Van Dyke Corridor Improvement Authority, but we also have a Lakeside Corridor Improvement Authority, just in the future to make it more clear.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have. I support
Okay.
these candidates.
Council, anyone else? With no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, council. Next up is the Economic Development Corporation Brownfield Authority. Again, there are 2 members seeking reappointment. This is a mayoral appointment, and it is to a term ending June 30, 2030. That is a long commitment, but we appreciate it. I certainly do. So is there anyone who would make the appointment of Catherine Giles and Lauren Tackett?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Sarowski.
Resolved to appoint Catherine Giles and Lauren Tackett to the Economic Development Corporation Brownfield Authority to a term ending June 30, 2030, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subset 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
I wish them well. It's a long time. God bless them.
With no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Next up is the Ethnic Community Committee. There are 4 members who are up for reappointment. All 4 of them are requesting reappointment. They are all for mayoral appointments to terms ending June 30th, 2027. Specifically, is there any council member who would make a motion to reappoint Abbott Basal, Cosetta El-Zaheni, Susan Katula, and Iqbal Singh?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Zarko.
Resolved to appoint Abbott Basal, Cosetta El-Zaheni, Susan Katula, and Iqbal Singh to the Ethnic Community Committee to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again, council. Next is the Local Development Finance Authority. This is a mayoral appointment to a term ending June 30th, 2028. There are 5 members that I'd like to see reappointed, those being Mike Balsamo, Philip Hunsberger, Stephen Palmaville, Howard Sizemore, and Jill Tommen. Is there a motion?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Schmidt.
Resolved to appoint Mike Balsamo, Philip Hunsberger, Stephen Palmaville, Howard Sizemore, and Jill Toman to the Local Development Finance Authority to a term ending June 30th, 2028, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again, council. Next up is the Arts Commission. This is a council appointment to a term ending June 30th, 2028. There are 2 members seeking reappointment. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Yanez.
resolved to appoint Barbara Chudzik and Jessica Conti to the Arts Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2028, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
No, sir.
With no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Beautification Commission. This one, we have 3 members who are seeking reappointment. It is a council appointment. There is 1 open seat, and these are all for a term ending June 30th, 2027. Is there a council member that would like to make a motion regarding appointments to the Beautification Commission?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Sarowski.
Resolved to appoint Stephen Duncan, Susan Hobig, Gary Isom, and Chris Godecke to the Beautification Committee to terms ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subset 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion, council? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Board of Code Appeals. There is one open seat, no member seeking reappointment. This is a council appointment to a term ending June 30, 2029. Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion? Hearing none, we will note the Board of Code Appeals and move on for right now. All right, next up is the Citizen Advisory Committee, CDBG. This is a city council appointment to terms ending June 30th, 2025, and it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All 7 up. Is there a council member who'd like to make a motion?
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Zerko.
resolve to appoint Cosetta Elshenny, Juliana Hardiman, Nikita Jones, Benjamin Orjata, Grace Pedri, Jeannie Shabath Lewis, and Sean Taylor to the Citizens Advisory Committee, CDBG, to a term ending June 30th, 2025, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next up is the Community Alliance. These are, there are 2 members seeking reappointment. This is a council appointment, both to terms ending June 30th, 2027. Is there a member who'd like to make a motion?
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Schmidt.
resolve to appoint Sandy Delavano Marchi and Richard Ruba to the Community Alliance to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next up is the Historical Commission. There are 5 seats slated for appointment. 3 members are seeking reappointment and 2 seats are open. One of the open seats has a term ending date of June 30th, 2025, one June 30, 2027, and the remaining 3 members seeking reappointment are June 30th, 2027. Is there anyone who would like to start us off on the Historical Commission with a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
resolve to appoint Nicholas Cavalli, John Connor, Teresa Kroll to the Historical Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
These folks, sorry, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke, go ahead.
these folks are already on the commission. They've done a great job. I think they deserve to get reappointed.
Council, anyone else? And I agree, Mr. Radke. So hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We still do have the open seats.
They're different term lengths, is that what?
There's one ending June 30, 2025, one ending June 30, 2027.
Okay. Can I go again?
Go ahead, Mr. Radke.
Resolve to appoint Teresa Leslie Robinson to the Historical Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2025, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subset 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
Just that she came highly recommended and has been attending events.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Council, anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, one more on the Historical Commission to a term ending June 30, 2027. Is there anyone who'd like to make that motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
resolve to appoint Kyle Shimek to the Historical Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications, sorry, let me back up. To a term ending June 30th, 2026, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subsection 4.03, taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
I would ask you to withdraw. It was 2027. So if you want, withdraw, there's no support.
Okay,
So
I got confused then.
withdraw your motion.
Withdraw. yeah.
And then you can do it again. But it is June 30th, 2027.
2027? Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Resolved to appoint Kyle Shemek to the Historical Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subsection 4.03, taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next up is the Library Board of Trustees. This is a city council appointment. There is one member seeking reappointment to a term ending June 30, 2027. Council,
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Zarko.
resolve to appoint Catherine McKinney to the Library Board of Trustees to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next up is the Solid Waste Commission. There are 3 positions here, 2 members seeking reappointment and 1 open seat. The open seat has a term ending June 30, 2026, and the 2 members seeking reappointment would be to terms ending June 30th, 2027. This is a council appointment. Council,
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Schmidt.
resolve to appoint Lillian Jacobs to the Solid Waste Management Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2026, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anyone else on the Solid Waste Management Commission?
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Schmidt.
resolve to appoint Henrietta Bazuski and Zachary Overman to the Solid Waste Management Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to the members of the Solid Waste Management Commission. Mr. Vanderpool, you give us their email addresses and we can forward all the priority list questions.
Perfect.
Now on.
It's a great idea.
Wonderful, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, just kidding. Next up is the Sustainability Commission. Sustainability Commission is city council appointment. There are 4 seats. There is an open seat to a term ending June 30, 2027. There are 2 members seeking reappointment, and there is an open ex officio member as well. Council, is there anyone that would like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Sustainability Commission. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Mrs. Zarko or Mr. Yanis?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Go on.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
guess.
Yanis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolve to appoint Nathan Inks, Nikita Jones, and Kathleen Francois to the Sustainability Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointee meeting qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support, because that's exactly what it is.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. I'd just like to say that I've known Ms. Francois for about a decade or so now. She is a writer. I don't know if I can call her a journalist. She's here in the audience tonight. She wrote for Greening Detroit or Greening of Detroit? Greening Detroit for many years. She currently is a staff writer for Our Magazine, and she is a veteran of the formerly a writer for Our Magazine, and a veteran of the United States Navy.
Very nice.
All right, thank you for your service, Ms. Francois. Council, any further discussion?
It's going to be great.
With no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We do have the one other Sustainability Commission appointment, Council.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
resolve to appoint Nathania Fonseca to the Sustainability Commission as an ex officio member to a term ending June 30th, 2027, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter Section 4.03, taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
Yes, briefly, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Radke.
I read, I'm trying to find in the biographies they gave us, but I just want to read what it said recommending her to us. She's an ex officio member because she's a minor, but has been actively attending and participating in Sustainability Commission meetings since September 2023. She has founded a tree planting organization that is dedicated to conservation and sustainability. She has been involved in the work of the Commission's Tree Committee subgroup. As a high school student, Ms. Fonseca provides a valuable youth perspective as it relates to sustainability. That's tremendous. So I just thought this is just wonderful, and we're happy to have her on board. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Radke. Council, anyone else?
No.
Has she applied for the
The Youth Advisory
the
Board?
youth advisory? We're going to have a couple openings. All right, with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Last but not least is the Youth Advisory Board. And we have, 13 members of the Youth Advisory Board. It looks like there are 8 that are seeking reappointment, leaving 5 open seats. We do have a couple of applicants. So council, is there anyone that would like to make a motion on the Youth Advisory Board?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Strowski.
Resolved to appoint Yusuf Adnan, Kayla Beauchamp, Claudia, Branakachniki, and I'm sure Brakonichki.
Brekaniecki.
Well, thank you very much for that. That was pretty good. John Data, Christopher, oh goodness. John Kun Kerhier. Oh, sorry, sorry, Christopher. Sunya Japin, Lauren Sanchez, Grace Simon, Fayor Zena, Thomas Sarah, to the Youth Advisory Board to a term ending June 30th, 2025, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. So we have the 8 members who are seeking reappointment, then
And the
Zena
2
Fahor and Sarah Thomas as the additional members.
Sarah, so I'm sorry, I
Said them backwards, yeah.
said them backwards, I did, I'm sorry. Zena.
That's okay. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
Other than I'm going to apologize right now for torturing all those names, I do apologize. I should have known better than to offer to say them all, to jump all in. I went all in anyway, but I think that I really do commend all the youth who want to be involved. It's a tremendous thing to be involved in government, to kind of jump in and get involved with something that's exciting and important. And so I'm happy to have them, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sarowski. Council, any for Mr. Radke?
Just briefly, I'm always amazed by the qualifications and the resumes that the Youth Advisory Board has. And I just want to congratulate them on the hard work because we appreciate their service to the city. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Mrs. Schmidt.
Mayor Taylor, thank you. I have the opportunity to be with juniors and seniors all day long while I'm at work, and I have had some conversations. My question is, if we have other students that are interested in this board and it's not June when we do these reappointments, if they put in an application, are we able to appoint them during the school year?
I think so, right? I mean, is there?
Okay, great, because I have a couple of students that are really thinking about it, and they would be great additions, so I just wanted to make sure that that was
An option.
Anything to add, Mr.?
I would just say that when we have openings, we can fill them as they're filled, especially with youth advisory, because we know that those come in sometimes during the school year.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. We have to vote on this? Did we already vote on it?
No.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Okay.
All right, so we have 3 members left for the Youth Advisory Board. Is there anyone who has any appointments right now? If not, so the Board of Code Appeals, I wonder what the council's pleasure would be if we would combine the remaining Youth Advisory Board members and the Board of Code Appeals to the next meeting, or typically what we'll do with the Youth Advisory Board is give it a month or two. So like we could put the Youth Advisory Board out to
Middle meeting of August?
the first meeting in August. Yeah, okay, it's written right there. I'll tell you what, whoever came up with this sheet deserves a 10%.
This is great.
We love them.
Unless it was Vanderpool. Then nothing. Then, okay, so I would entertain a motion to postpone the appointments to the Youth Advisory Board to the August 7th, 2024 regular city council meeting.
So moved.
Support. Been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We still have the Board of Code Appeals. Give me a second on that one.
We didn't have anything in our packet about it, so if we get some information about it, I think that'd be helpful to us.
So why don't we say, we put this one off to the second meeting in July, so a month?
That works?
You know what that meeting date would be?
16.
16th of July. Okay, I would entertain a motion to postpone the appointment to the Board of Code Appeals to the July 16th, 2024 City Council meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Sorry.
All right, thank you, council. That was relatively smooth, and Ms. Barr did not have to do the roll call vote as we did the one year. What a nightmare that was. So I just want to close that by saying there are a number of people who make the city of Sterling Heights the great city that it is, and these folks who mostly volunteer their time to serve on a board or commission are greatly appreciated by this city council, by the employees, by the city administration, and to any resident out there paying attention that knows how much these folks really mean to making this the great city it is. So we thank them for their service to the community. If you're interested in serving on a board or commission, please stop by City Hall, talk to the city clerk's office, or go online and fill out an application and looking to see what's available and what your interest might be. We always love to see new applicants. So with that, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item I from the consent agenda. This is to award a bid for the 2024 sidewalk replacement program, city project number 24-432, with an estimated total cost of $1,332,939, partially offset by payments received from adjoining property owners. Mr. Vanderpool, is there any presentation you want to make, or can we go right to the audience?
Mayor, I certainly have comments, but maybe if you want to go to the audience, and then I certainly can respond to Councilman Radke's question. I think I know what it is.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, Mr. Radke, would you like to make a motion?
Please.
Mr. Radke.
Resolved, I have to make them one at a time, I assume, Mr. Koszewski. Resolved to award the bid for the 2024 sidewalk replacement program, city project number 24-432, to Luigi Ferdinandi and Son Cement Co. Inc., 16481 Common Road, Roseville, Michigan, 48066, at unit prices bid, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign all documents required in conjunction with this project on behalf of the city.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion, Mr. Radke?
Yes, briefly, Mr. Mayor. I pulled this specifically to talk about the cost of our current sidewalk replacement program, which I think that some residents may be unaware of, and if they're not, they're going to be aware of it very shortly. But as I read this packet, and I'd love for Mr. Vanderpool to expand on it, we both replace and do gap construction in Sterling Heights. This is the replacement end. The average assessment for property owners in Sterling Heights is just a little bit over $1,000 a homeowner for the homes that are detailed in this packet today. Last year, it was a little bit over $800 a homeowner. We have a proposal on the ballot coming up this year that would take the sidewalk program into the city's coffers and no longer specially assess homeowners. I would ask the residents at home to really carefully evaluate this proposal, because if it passes in November, they would not be assessed these fees. And we, as I understand it, do the sidewalks on about a 20-year basis. So we do it in two forms. We go through the city, we divide it up into 20 segments, and we pick a segment every year and we evaluate the sidewalk just to test it and make sure it's okay. We also divide the program in half to fill damaged sidewalk that's come to our attention from homeowners calling in complaints, roots that get into the sidewalk. When we're fixing streets, we notice sidewalk that's broken or we have to put an asphalt patch on, and we repair that as a priority. So it's not just one segment of the city every year. Half of it's one segment of the city and the other half is all throughout the city. And prices for cement are going up. When I was first elected, I want to say it was something like $72 a 5-foot square of sidewalk. It's now over $170 for a 5-foot square of sidewalk in the 7.5 years I've been on, or 7 years I've been on council. With that being said, I'd love for Mr. Vanderpool to talk about this program a little bit and explain to homeowners the benefits and why we do it, I guess, and what's important about it.
Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Councilman Radke said it well. I can just by way of background give a little bit of information on the ballot proposal for those who might have missed it. Some may recall a couple of months ago, the City Council approved our Visioning 2040 plan. That is obviously a very forward-looking plan centered on sustainability with a number of guiding principles. It's a follow-up to our Visioning 2030 plan. So we're always looking ahead 10, 15 years, engaging with the community and asking the businesses and residents, what is the community they would like to see in 2040? And then how do we get there? How do we activate that plan? Because a lot of these initiatives take time, take a lot of consideration. We have to be very thoughtful about it. So the Mayor and Council approved the Visioning 2040 plan a couple of months ago, and at the last meeting, the City Council approved an activation plan, if you will, of our Visioning 2040 plan. And that is, as Councilman Radke said, a ballot initiative which will be on the November presidential ballot for the community to decide whether or not they want to invest in the future in a number of categories. And there's 5 primary categories. First and foremost, pathways. I'm going to elaborate on that because sidewalks are an important component. I'll circle back to that. So pathways, reforestation of our community. Our tree canopy is very low at 19%. It should be up around 40%. Open space, land preservation. We hear a lot from the community. Why do we have to develop every square inch of the city? And the answer is we don't have to. We can preserve open space through a land bank, but the city has to be able to acquire the property. We can't just mandate that a property owner not develop their property. It's not legally possible. So this proposal would provide funding for a land bank to preserve open space and land preservation. New park development, 3 major park developments. One would be at Belvedere. It's a historic point of pride in our city, just north of Rotary Park, and also a canoe kayak livery to take further advantage of the Clinton River, which has become a true treasure in our community. And also, lastly, a couple other parks. One in particular, developing Red Run Park in the southeast quadrant of our city that would then connect to Bombardier Park, and that would also connect to the Iron Bell Trail system, which runs right through Sterling Heights. So this would be a major park development with pathways, a dog park, pickleball courts, and the like. And it would service thousands of rooftops, thousands of residents in our southeast quadrant of the city. I mentioned the pickleball facility. We can't build them quick enough. It's the rage for individuals of all ages. So through this plan, we'd be building an enclosed 365-day-a-year pickleball facility to play pickleball whenever you want it. I shouldn't say 24 hours a day, but be able to play it regularly. So let me circle back now to pathways. So part of this initiative would be pathways through our 85-acre nature preserve in the northwest quadrant of the city. So this plan covers a lot of different areas of the community. We have this amazing gem in our northwest quadrant of the city, 85 acres, but we don't have a real way to access it for educational programming, for students and others. There are thousands of species, all sorts of wildlife. It's a real asset in our community. So we want to have passive pathways, lookout points, plenty of educational opportunities for residents and visitors. But a big part of it is converting sidewalks from the special assessment program to our city millage. So we will continue to build out sidewalks, connect gaps, and repair sidewalks. But instead of paying through special assessment, as Councilman Radke mentioned on the agenda tonight, the average is $1,102, but some of the bills will be almost $3,500. So there are over 1,200 residents in the special assessment program this year. Now, those individuals are not going to be happy when they get a bill next year, once the program's done, for $1,100, the average bill. And those that get a bill of $3,000 are really not going to be happy. It's not really an equitable way to repair sidewalks. Switching it to the tax levy, if this ballot initiative is approved in November, those bills would be reduced to, on average, $95. In fact, on average would be, $95 would be the cost of all the initiatives I just mentioned. So for the average home in Sterling Heights, that's what this proposal will cost. Everything I mentioned, including sidewalks, $95 per year. So you can see that's a far more equitable program. And if you're not in the special assessment program this year, there's a good chance you'll be in it in the next couple of years. And if not then, the next 5 years. Sooner or later, you're going to be in the sidewalk special assessment program. So moving it to the tax levy is certainly more equitable. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. You explained that a little bit better than I think I could have. I just wanted to point out a couple things. Moving from the sidewalk special assessment program to just a millage for sidewalks, it's more equitable, like Mr. Vanderpool said. It allows the city to repair sidewalk faster, cheaper, because we have unit pricing for everything, and then it cuts a lot of red tape. Because one of the most distasteful parts of my job as a councilman is when we go through and we do the special assessments, the phone calls start coming. Because when you open up your bill and you see a bill for $3,000, and when I first got elected, there was a little old lady who got a $9,000 bill. She was 92 years old, and she ringing us every day. It's impossible. We actually have reduced the cost, but eventually, with cost rising, we're going to have to lift the cap. We're going to have to go higher, because it's just not going to be fair anymore. But the idea that sidewalk in front of your house is not for you. It's for the entire neighborhood. It's to make our community multimodal, walkable, pedestrian-friendly, neighborhood-friendly. And moving it from the special assessment process, which is truly unfair. It's a crapshoot. Maybe my neighbor across the street, he gets $3,000. My dad, I think he paid $800 last year. He was the average. It's just not fair. And you don't really know what's going to happen. Did a tree do you in? Did something happen to your sidewalk? Did it just, flood? Is it tilting slightly? Whatever. It's not fair. It's more fair if we move it to from the special assessment to the millage. But more than that, it also reduces the cost for the actual homeowners. Much like our refuse ordinance, there was a question when we were first going through the priority waste plan of whether we should do a fee for garbage or levy a millage. And the millage is much better for residents because the millage is $127 a homeowner. If we were to charge you a fee, it'd be about $200. That's what they pay in Shelby Township and elsewhere. Because with the millage, it spreads across all homeowners in the city, but all business owners too, all commercial property. Now, under Headley, you get protection from rising inflation. If you're a business owner or if you're a non-resident owner, you don't have protection from Headley, so you pay full freight. So at the end of the day, this not only will repair more sidewalk, better, faster, cheaper, it'll save residents money in the long run, because the millage is for 15 years. So if you pay $95 a year, at the end of it, we're going to be, just random, almost $1,500. The average assessment this year is $1,100. Are prices going to go up over the next 15 years? Or are they going to go down? So I would urge the residents to support the ballot initiative, but I'd go even further and say this is why we're doing this. Because we see the inequity here, and we see how frustrating it is to residents to get these bills. So we're trying to do it in a thoughtful way to move our city into the future. Because everybody can say, well, I had to pay this in the past. My fathers had to pay it twice. It's a tax on our longest term residents. It's unfair. Let's do better for the future. But that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Radke. Anyone else? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Radke.
Resolved to adopt the resolution as required by Section 48.6E of the City Code for those properties included within the 2024 sidewalk replacement program, city project number 24-432.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? With no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That completes that portion of our agenda. We will move on to communications from citizens. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda? Yes, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. As a resident, you were talking about inequities, right? And in May of just this, this past May, I was tagged with, having weeds in my garden bed. I was on a work trip and wasn't even given 24 hours. And now I've got a $184 bill because someone showed up within 24 hours and cut my lawn and, did the, weed whacking. So what kind of recourse do I have for such a absorbent charge for 20 minutes of work? I did call with someone named Derek, and he said, oh yeah, and I got your neighbor too. Got your neighbor? I mean, seriously, that's, what kind of recourse do I have for that?
So we don't engage in like a back and forth discussion during this portion of the meeting.
Okay,
But we'll take notes and we will respond. We can respond after this portion of the meeting ends or individually if you leave your contact information with
Okay.
the city clerk.
all right.
Okay?
Yep, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Anyone else under communications from citizens? If not, I'll close that portion and we'll go on to reports from city administration. Mr. Vanderpool, anything?
Mayor, just quickly, I wanted to, in response to the resident that just spoke, the city does have a very proactive property maintenance code. We have 16 inspectors that are out in the city inspecting properties every day. We also have contractors that help us out with compliance. Pursuant to state statute, when grass exceeds 6 inches, we provide notice to residents and they're given 24 hours to mow the grass. And if they contact us and say they need a little more time or there's some extenuating circumstances, we certainly work with residents and businesses. But to the extent we don't get that, our contractor then circles back and within the next day or two cuts the property and the properties are billed accordingly. So this is one way that the community is kept looking neat and orderly. It's part of our SHINE program, if you will, Sterling Heights Initiative for Neighborhood Excellence. And it's not just lawn mowing, it's a lot of different code enforcement. It's fixing driveways and broken gutters and broken windows and peeling paint and sometimes roofs in disrepair and so on. To keep a community this size in good shape and keep property values very strong, this type of proactive effort is required. Now, having said all that, I'd be happy to take a look at this case. If it's a first-time incident, we have some options to reduce administrative fees and so on and work with you some. So we'll take a look at it. We will have your name and number and we'll certainly get back with you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Mr. Koszybski?
No closed session tonight, Mayor.
All right, council, any reports or new business tonight? Who'd like to go first? Mr. Yanes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I probably should have brought this up with Mr. Moore here, but I'm curious as to whether we, as a city or priority as a company, is going to start an audit program to monitor the quality of recyclables. That's something that we've talked about in the past, and now that we're talking about it for multifamily units who may or may not be using a dumpster-style recycle bin. I think that's very important. If we do one, I'd certainly like to know what that program would look like and a timeline on that. So if city administration can get back to me or city council with that, an audit program for our recycling. That's number one. Red tag. I think we called it red tag program before, right? Red tag program. And in regards to the education portion of that, we have a number of resources to help the citizens with proper recycling. So we have our resources from Eagle and Lansing. We have a recycling specialist at the Eagle office in Warren. Certainly, we have the facilities to host an in-person program, as well as doing something on a video that we can play online for people to watch, and maybe that could be a resource for these multifamily properties that can direct their residents to an online video. So it's something that I think we've talked about in the past, but I think we've gotten to the point now where we don't want to talk about it anymore. We need to do it. I think the city should step up and host an event. So without objection, I would like city council to direct city administration to plan some form of recycling education program.
Mayor Taylor?
Do I need to be more specific?
I don't think so. Mrs. Zarko?
I have no objection, but I think included should be priority waste.
Yes.
As far as the education program.
So, thank you, Mrs. Yar. You're absolutely right, because I was going to mention priority waste and I just forgot. So
Okay.
yes, you're absolutely right. Priority waste should be included.
Didn't they agree to do that already?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Fund it and
Okay, so we're on track.
Mr. Vanderpool?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Yena's good ideas. We are working on a town hall type of recycling educational program. We'll bring in numerous speakers, many of which you mentioned, and maybe others. But in addition to that, we'll continue to update our videos, push those out. And I will get an update on the audit program. Yes, it's time that we start checking on that and red tagging where there's problems, and I'll certainly provide an update.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Yanez. Council, anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Radke?
Briefly, through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, we had talked about this earlier, and I thought it was going to be on the agenda tonight, but we've talked about possibly offering a program to purchase yard waste bins at a reduced cost for the first bin because it's new, and people are contacting us about it. I was hoping that we might have some information on that, or is it not quite ready yet, or where do we stand?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Radke, thank you. That is a program that we are still fine-tuning. We hope to have that rolled out in a couple of weeks. So we do want to offer, much like we do for trees, we offer a period of time where residents can buy trees at a discount. I forget what the discount is now, but it's pretty significant. So we're looking at offering up something very similar for refuse carts, specifically yard waste carts. And we're going through the machinations of that, public education of that, what exactly will the amount be? It'll be significant because we have heard that the brown yard waste bins are expensive at $110, no question about that. So we're going to offer a discount program for a period of time, and hopefully people will take advantage of that, but we need a couple more weeks to dot the i's and cross the t's on that.
Well, I thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. That's excellent, and I know that my father is one of them. He called me about it today, so I think the residents will be appreciative, especially ones that have already purchased it who have contacted us about the cost. I am thinking of, there was a 90-year-old man who contacted me just recently about it and was very frustrated, so this will be a very big improvement. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Radke.
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Schmidt?
Just to piggyback on Mr. Yanez in the town hall, just a suggestion that we wait until the fall maybe to do that. We would probably have better attendance than during vacation time in the summer. I know it's a priority that it get done. However, I think the more people we have there, the better as well. So just my suggestion.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Council, anyone else? Mrs. Sarowski?
Thank you. Just very briefly, I just wanted to make a comment about our Music in the Park program we've had 2 weeks now, and I think the attendance, especially the first night, was phenomenal. The second night last week was still very high and wonderful. So I just want to remind those residents to it's been great, and please come out again this coming week. It's going to be the My Best Friend's Girl. That's the title of their band. And so that's on Play With. I guess they're an 80s cover band for the Cars, the former band The Cars, or I think they might be still a current band. I don't know. But
Mrs. Murray knows.
from an 80s girl, loved the Cars, and I'll probably be able to sing every single darn one of their songs. I can't find my car keys, but I sing the 80s songs. So looking forward to it. I hope you all come out, and it's been really good. It's been great. It's been a great season so far, so look forward to seeing everybody. Other than that, stay hydrated in this, the nurse is coming out of me. Drink your fluids, not your coffees, not your teas, not your Cokes, but fluids, clear fluids on this hot days, and try to stay cool. And there are some cooling centers, those of you that do not have air conditioning, make sure you keep your blinds closed, your fans on. I think probably most people in Sterling Heights do have air conditioning, but not everybody. So please stay as cool as you can and keep your body, if you don't have air conditioning, keep cool towels on you and stay as cool as you can. These next days are going to be kind of brutal. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sarowski. Coffee, tea, and Coke, those aren't liquids?
No, those aren't good for you. They're caffeinated and they
They're liquids,
dehydrate
though.
you. It's a push, and actually they probably take a
push?
little.
They're
It's a push.
dehydrating.
They dehydrate
Okay,
you.
let me ask you a question. Diet Coke?
Still a caffeinated beverage, bad.
Okay.
Anything else you want to know? I will tell you.
I'm sure you will.
I will.
All right, thank you, council, and thank you, everyone else, for being here tonight and attending. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported, with no discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.